Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're venturing into the world of French internal security. We're going to explore a really key agency, the General Directorate for Internal Security. You might know it as the DGSI. Our mission really is to cut through some of the complexity and give you a clear picture of what this organization is all about. Its origins, its purpose, and, well, a particularly eyebrow-raising episode from its past. We've got a breakdown of the DGSI itself, its structure, what it actually does, alongside the story of how it came to be.
That's right. And we'll also be examining a rather, well, unique event involving Wikipedia, which really throws into sharp relief some of the modern challenges faced by intelligence agencies, navigating this open information landscape we live in.
Okay, so let's dive in with the fundamentals. The agency's identity. The formal name in French is Direction Générale de la Sécurité Intérieure. Bit of a mouthful.
It is.
In English, you can usually call it the General Directorate for Internal Security or Directorate General for Internal Security. Both seem to work fine. But the shorthand you'll probably hear most often is just DGSI.
And it's interesting, you might also hear it called RG informally sometimes. That nickname is actually a holdover from one of its key predecessor organizations, the Direction Centrale des Renseignements Généraux.
Ah, the Central Directorate of General Intelligence.
Exactly. That eventually merged into what became the DGSI. So the little piece of history kind of embedded in the agency's informal name.
That's a neat connection. Now, when did the DGSI, as we know it today, actually come into being?
Officially, it was formed on May 12, 2014.
Okay, 2014. And given its focus on internal security, it operates under the authority of the French Ministry of the Interior, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And their central hub, where are they based?
Their headquarters are at 84 Rue de Villiers in Levallois-Perret. That's just outside Paris.
Got it. And who's in charge?
Well, the minister responsible for the DGSI is currently Bruno Retailleau. And the agency's executive, the sort of day-to-day head, the general director, is Celine Berthon. Those are the key people at the top.
And this isn't some small outfit, is it?
Oh, no, definitely not. We're talking about over 5,000 employees.
Wow.
And an annual budget somewhere around $300 million.
That really gives you a sense of the scale. And if you listening are keen to explore further, their official website is dgsi.interior.go.fr.
Okay, so let's get to the core of it.
Yep.
What exactly does the DGSI do? What are its main missions and responsibilities?
Right.
Essentially, it's the front line for protecting France from threats within its own borders.
Right.
And this covers several key areas.
First and foremost, I guess, is counter-espionage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's about detecting and neutralizing any attempts at interference or intelligence gathering by foreign powers inside France.
And then, crucially, counter-terrorism. Sadly, that's a vital function for so many security agencies today, fighting terrorist acts, threats to the state's security, its territorial integrity.
They also play a significant role in countering cybercrime, which, as we know, has become an increasingly critical area for national security everywhere. Beyond those, the DGSI conducts surveillance of various groups, organizations, even social trends that could potentially pose a threat. And this also includes closely monitoring individuals and groups who become radicalized and might, be on a path towards violence.
And it's not just about ideologically motivated threats, is it? They're also involved in tackling international criminal organizations if they impact national security.
Exactly. If those organizations could have a substantial impact on France's national security, the DGSI gets involved. What's particularly interesting here, though, is a unique aspect of the DGSI. It's the only French Secret Service that has a direct working relationship with the judicial institutions, what they call l'institution judiciaire.
Oh, interesting. So direct cooperation with the courts and legal system.
Yes. This close integration is quite distinctive.
What does that actually mean in practice, do you think?
Well, it likely streamlines the process, right?
Sure.
For investigations, sharing intelligence, especially when legal action might be needed, makes things potentially much smoother.
Okay, that gives us a good handle on the DGSI's current role. But like any big organization, it didn't just appear fully formed in 2014. It evolved, right? It has roots in older structures.
Precisely. You can trace the DGSI's origins back to two key precursor agencies. Both were part of the French National Police. There was the Direction Centrale des Renseignements Généraux, the RG one we mentioned with the nickname.
Right, the General Intelligence Directorate.
Yeah, focused on broader intelligence gathering, political monitoring, that sort of thing. And then there was the Direction de la Surveillance du Territoire, the DST. That one was primarily focused on counter-espionage.
Okay, RG and DST. And the first big step towards the modern DGSI was creating the DCRI, the Central Directorate of Interior Intelligence.
Exactly, the DCRI. That happened in 2008. Apparently, this merger was something Nicolas Sarkozy had wanted for a while, even back when he was Minister of the Interior.
Ah, okay.
It was officially approved by the Council of Ministers in June 2007, not long after he actually became president.
But it wasn't maybe universally welcomed at first. I read something about the Interior Minister at the time, Michelle Alliot-Marie, having some reservations.
Yeah, it seems there was some initial hesitation. She apparently commissioned her own study into the proposal, which suggests there might have been, different opinions on the best way to structure domestic intelligence back then.
But eventually, it went ahead.
It did. The creation of the DCRI was publicly announced in September 2007 by Alliot-Marie. The legal framework was finalized in April 2008, and the agency officially became operational on July 1st, 2008.
And this involved merging staff, pulling people from the old RG structure.
Yes, specifically integrating personnel from the Subdirection of General Information, which was part of the former RG's setup.
Who led this new DCRI initially?
The first head was Bernard Squarcini. He'd previously been the director of the DST, and he was initially supported by two central adjunct directors, Renee Bailey, who came from the RG side,
Okay.
and Patrick Calvar from the DST side. So that early leadership really reflected the merging of the two parent organizations.
Were there changes in leadership early on?
Yeah, a few shuffles. Renee Bailey left in June 2009, went to head up intelligence for the Paris police, and Patrick Calvar moved over to lead intelligence at France's External Security Service, the DGSI.
Ah, the external agency.
Right. His position at DCRI was then filled by Frederick Vaux.
And the DCRI got noticed pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. It found itself in the public eye quite soon. One of its first big media moments was the arrest of Julian Coupai on the Tarnac affair. Plus, in December 2008, the DCRI leadership was reportedly focused on surveillance of what they thought was an imminent Islamist plot in the Paris area.
Right. And then Patrick Calvar, the guy who left for the DGSE, he actually came back.
He did. He returned to the DCRI in May 2012. This time as the top boss, the central director, taking over from Squarcini. So yeah, there was a degree of continuity bringing back experienced personnel.
Okay, so that brings us up to around 2012, 2014. The shift from DCRI to DGSI, what prompted that change?
Well, the political landscape in France changed in 2012. The party's socialists came into power. And that naturally led to a reassessment of the DCRI, its effectiveness, its place in the whole security setup.
Was there a specific trigger?
A really significant moment was a critical parliamentary report that came out in May 2013. It was authored by Jean-Jacques Ravosa and Patrice Vercher, bipartisan, and it didn't pull any punches.
What did it say?
It highlighted shortcomings within the DCRI. Most notably, its failure to prevent the terrible shootings in Toulouse and Montauban in March 2012. Those events tragically underline potential intelligence failures, and the report really focused on that.
Wow. Okay, so that report was pretty damning.
It certainly seemed to be a catalyst.
Yeah.
Following that critical evaluation, the Interior Minister at the time, Manuel Valls, announced a reform of domestic intelligence. That was June 17, 2012. And this reform process ultimately led to the official decree, number 2014-445, issued April 2014, effective May 12, 2014, and that was the official birth of the DGSI as we know it today.
So understanding those criticisms, especially from the parliamentary report, helps explain why they decided to make such big changes.
Absolutely. It provides crucial context for the transformation.
And what was the main structural change in that transformation? You mentioned something earlier.
The key thing was the reporting structure. The DGSI now reports directly to the Ministry of the Interior, whereas the DCRI, its predecessor, was technically part of the National Police structure.
Right. So what practical difference does that make, do you think? A more direct line of command?
Yeah, presumably. It likely allows for quicker decision-making, maybe a more direct alignment of the intelligence agency's priorities with the government's overall security objectives, more autonomy, potentially.
But despite that big structural shift, the leadership stayed the same initially.
Yes, there was continuity there. Patrick Calvar, who had been leading the DCRI, just continued in his role as the head of the newly formed DGSI. He stayed on until 2017.
Okay. Now, let's pivot a bit to something, well, peculiar, definitely noteworthy in the agency's history. The Wikipedia incident. This happened in April 2013, so technically under the DCRI banner just before the name change.
That's right.
But it really shines a light on that friction between national security needs and, well, open information online.
It really does. What happened was The DCRI tried to get the French Wikipedia article about a military radio station, Pierre sur
Yeah.
Haute, taken down, completely removed.
Right. And the Wikimedia Foundation, they asked the DCRI, okay, what specific parts are the problem?
Exactly, but the DCRI apparently refused to specify. They just demanded the whole article be deleted. Total deletion.
Which does seem, well, a bit heavy-handed, doesn't it?
It certainly seems that way. Was it, a misunderstanding of how Wikipedia or online info works, or was it a calculated risk? Hard to say from the outside.
And then it escalated.
It did. The situation got more serious when the DCRI put pressure on a Wikipedia administrator, a volunteer who was based in France. According to the Wikimedia Foundation's account, this volunteer was summoned to the DCRI offices.
Summoned, wow.
Yeah, and reportedly faced threats of detention and prosecution if they didn't delete the article.
That's quite something for a volunteer editor.
It is. The Foundation's statement detailed how this administrator, who apparently hadn't even edited that specific article before, felt compelled to delete it right there while at the DCRI's premises. They were apparently even warned that trying to restore it could lead to legal trouble for other admins. It's a pretty striking confrontation.
And how did the Wikipedia community react?
Unsurprisingly, it caused a big stir. Other contributors quickly restored the article. It kind of demonstrated the resilient, collaborative nature of the platform. Streisand effect in action, almost.
Yeah, trying to suppress something just makes it more visible. And what about the French Ministry of the Interior? Did they comment at the time?
Reportedly, no immediate comment. Which leaves you wondering about their rationale, their thinking behind such a forceful approach, and then the silence afterwards.
It really does make you think about how these powerful agencies navigate the world of open source information.
Absolutely. The DCRI, or DGSI as it soon became, clearly saw something in that article as a security risk. But their method, pressuring an individual volunteer, definitely generated a lot of controversy and raises serious questions about, well, the appropriateness of those tactics in a democratic society that values free access to knowledge.
It's a fascinating case study, and despite that rather public, maybe awkward incident, the DGSI obviously continued its work, high-profile work, too.
Oh, definitely. For instance, in 2017, the DGSI co-led the terror investigation into the attack near Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. They worked alongside the National Center for Counter-Terrorism on that. So it underscores their ongoing critical role in responding to major security threats.
So when you look at the bigger picture,
Yeah, the DGSI's evolution, from the RG and DST through the DCRI phase to its current structure, it really reflects the changing security landscape France has faced, and the state trying to adapt its intelligence capabilities. The Wikipedia incident, while maybe specific, offers this really compelling glimpse into those tensions, right, between national security demands and the free flow of information in our digital age.
so let's try to wrap this up. We've looked at the DGSI as France's main internal security agency. It handles a huge range of critical stuff, counter-espionage, counter-terrorism, now cybercrime too. We traced its history from the older RG and DST, the creation of the DCRI in 2008, and then its transformation into the DGSI in 2014. A change partly driven, it seems, by criticisms of how the DCRI performed, especially highlighted in that parliamentary report.
Exactly.
And we touched on that really notable, kind of unusual Wikipedia incident, which vividly illustrates that delicate balance or maybe conflict between state security worries and the principles of open information.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to consider. Reflecting on the DGSI story, and especially that Wikipedia episode, what does it tell us about the inherent tensions? The tension between a state's fundamental need for security and the public's right to access information, to demand transparency. In this world that's just getting more digital, more interconnected all the time, how should intelligence agencies ideally operate? How can they effectively balance these often competing demands? It's a complex question, a real ongoing challenge, and there are certainly no easy answers.